Good morning from the Freedom of Information and Privacy Association. I'm Patrick Farnsworth, and this is your Access and Privacy Online news summary for Saturday, October 11th. It's another big week on the privacy and access front. We have important legislative updates, from Ottawa's ongoing border bills to new reforms in New Brunswick and consumer protections in Quebec. Across the provinces, the fallout continues over Ontario's Greenbelt scandal, while privacy and surveillance make headlines from local hockey rinks to federal audits. And finally, a brief look south of the border, where the Trump administration's Justice Department is again under scrutiny, and the online safety of children faces renewed legal challenges. Let's dive in. We start in Ottawa, where the federal government has split its controversial border bill in two. The minority government had trouble garnering necessary support from opposition parties for the legislation. The move means the federal border security proposals will proceed through Parliament on two separate legislative tracks, with Bill C-12 likely moving ahead first. Public Safety Minister Gary Anadasangri says the new bill, C-12, will fast-track less contentious border security measures, while the older bill, C-2, which gives authorities expanded powers to search mail and access personal information, will move more slowly through Parliament. The bill introduced Wednesday includes several measures from a June bill to expand the Coast Guard's role, tighten the immigration and refugee system, enhance information sharing on sex offenders, and better control chemicals used to make illicit drugs. The government argues the bill will make it easier to combat organized crime and fentanyl trafficking. The public safety minister said the government would still pursue passage of this bill, C-2, which proposes giving authorities new powers to search mail and access personal information. Critics say it's just a way to dodge accountability over human rights concerns. Civil liberties advocates, including our colleagues at the International Civil Liberties Monitoring Group, are calling both bills outrageous and warning they threaten due process rights and Canadians' privacy. The Civil Liberties Monitoring Group is concerned about legislative proposals that would limit the ability of people to claim asylum in Canada and give Canada Post powers to open and search letter mail. Staying at the border for the moment, from Brett McKay, LGI reporter at the Investigative Journalism Foundation, data obtained through access to information shows Alberta's new Border Patrol has made only 4 arrests for illegal immigration and 5 for drug trafficking in the 8 months since it launched. Premier Danielle Smith's government created the $29 million Interdiction Patrol Team to address what she called a leaky border, in a move many see being made to prevent Canada from being hit with 25% tariffs. Experts say the operation appears more political than practical, with most irregular border crossings still occurring thousands of kilometers away in Quebec. The story also raises privacy questions, with drones and surveillance tools deployed under provincial command for what has traditionally been a federal responsibility. In Nova Scotia, the legislature has wrapped up an 8-day lightning session that included 2 major pieces of legislation with serious implications for democracy and transparency. The sitting was dominated by a controversial bill, introduced on the first day, that prohibits protesters from blocking access to logging roads on Crown land and imposes a $50,000 fine and/or 6 months in jail for those who ignore removal orders. The bill draws sharp criticism from Mi'kmaq leaders, who say it was passed without consultation. Despite the short length of proceedings, Premier Tim Houston rejected the opposition's accusation that the government rushed its agenda through the session. Since the Tories took office in 2021, only an emergency summer session in 2022 was shorter, called to rescind a pay increase for politicians. Another law, the new Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, was tabled and passed in just 1 week, without providing any opportunity for the public to comment on this key democratic legislation. This is the latest effort by the Houston government to amend that legislation. The Center for Law and Democracy, the CLD, warns the government's actions shows contempt for the democratic process, and that most of its earlier recommendations to prior efforts were ignored. The CLD notes that giving the public an opportunity to provide feedback on draft access to information legislation is essential in a democracy. Together, the bills reveal an increasingly closed approach to decision-making in Halifax. Finally, in this segment, Quebec's new right to repair law is now in force. The legislation requires retailers and manufacturers to disclose whether parts and repair services are available before selling products, aiming to fight planned obsolescence and reduce electronic waste. Consumers will be able to repair goods like fridges, washing machines, and tablets using standard tools, a significant shift in consumer protection law. Quebec has had existing laws since 1978, requiring retailers and manufacturers to make information on replacement parts and repair services available. Retail groups call the rollout rushed, but the province insists it's had 2 years of notice. Turning to our national scan, let's take a look at the stories shaped by access to information and privacy across the country. From Anushka Yadav, LGI reporter at The Pointer, shows us that in Ontario, Premier Doug Ford's government is again under scrutiny for its handling of the Greenbelt scandal. New investigations show the province is months behind on its legally required 10-year review and has failed to release documents under Freedom of Information laws. Whistleblowers and former civil servants say Ford's administration has silenced and suppressed planners who warned against land swaps and sprawl. Since being elected, Ford has pushed through multiple pieces of legislation to fast-track housing and highway development, laws that faced opposition not only from housing and environmental experts, but from his own party as well. At stake is more than environmental policy. It's the erosion of transparency, accountability, and public trust in land use decisions. In 2021, documents obtained by the Narwhal revealed that the Ontario government effectively silenced the Greenbelt Council by changing its rules and making its advice confidential. This restricted members' communication with the media and required that public statements be routed through government channels. Next, from Wayne Doyle, LGI reporter from BarrieToday.com, a mirror of a different kind of surveillance story from last week, this one on the ice. In Elmvale, a local arena is about to become a high-powered hub for public Wi-Fi and live-streamed hockey games. The service will also allow consumers to share their experience on social media in real time. The private company installing the system promises it will follow Canadian privacy laws, as well as Canadian Radio, Television, and Telecommunications Commission rules and regulations. But as live streaming expands, so do questions about consent, data collection, and how minors are filmed and broadcast online. Next, Maggie McIntosh, LGI reporter at the Winnipeg Free Press, continues reporting based on a $1,200 access to information request, with concerns being raised about fairness and transparency in traffic enforcement. A review of school zone speed camera tickets found major inconsistencies in signage and lighting, with critics calling the system a cash grab that does little to improve safety. The Winnipeg Free Press retraced the route taken by a resident to fact-check concerns about poor signage putting students at risk, noting westbound travelers are not greeted with a 30-km/h sign if they repeat the exact path. Privacy and fairness intersect here too, as automation increasingly replaces human judgment in how penalties are issued and contested. Staying in Manitoba, Brenda Sawatsky, LGI reporter at the Niverville Citizen, brings an important reminder about personal security. The story highlights how scammers are using AI-driven voice cloning and fake job postings to steal personal data and money. Cyber experts say even cautious users can fall victim when fraudsters exploit leaked information from corporate data breaches. It all begins with accessing your personal data, primarily your contact information. Organizations with which you're affiliated experience a data breach, and your personal information falls prey to someone with nefarious intentions. Digital crime now ranks as one of the most profitable forms of theft. In the past year alone, Google, Apple, Facebook, WestJet, Canada Revenue Agency, and the federal government are among those who've been hit. Their advice? Slow down, verify, and never share personal information over the phone. Now to the West Coast with Hope Lampe, LGI reporter at the Gabriola Sounder, who reports on these steps community members are taking to tackle toxic drug deaths through storytelling and open conversation. An event wrapping up the Building Hope series brought together survivors, Indigenous leaders, and island health officials to share experiences of addiction and recovery. Given the size of the population, few datasets are publicly available for Gabriola Island, given privacy laws. Encouragingly, that didn't prevent context from medical experts on what island health is seeing with the toxic drug crisis in the region, but does reveal inconsistency. Notably, the Nanaimo Regional District is disproportionately affected by the toxic drug poisoning crisis compared to the rest of island health. The series highlights how community-driven dialogue and data transparency can fight stigma and support harm reduction. Next, from Natasha Belowski, LJ reporter at Canada's National Observer, access requests reveal how climate change is beginning to disrupt federal regulation itself. Measurement Canada, the agency that certifies gas pumps and meters, warns that extreme heat is threatening its laboratory accuracy, potentially undermining fair pricing across the country. The combined result of lack of resources and climate change impact mean laboratories could have to suspend calibrations for increasing periods of time, and that downtime equals lost wages for employees, including Measurement Canada inspectors and service providers the agency has authorized to conduct inspections. It said this could also impact businesses that are legally required to have their scales and other measuring devices certified within certain time periods. It's a small but striking example of how climate change intersects with consumer protection and accountability. And finally, new scrutiny of the Canada Revenue Agency. The National Security and Intelligence Review Agency found a lack of rigor and possible bias in the CRA's audits of charities for alleged terrorist links. In a newly released report, the agency says the Review and Analysis Division of the CRA's Charities Directorate lacks an evidence-based method of validating the risk indicators it uses to justify scrutiny of a charity. Between 2009 and 2022, two-thirds of audited organizations were Islamic and 1/5 Sikh. The watchdog warns that flawed processes could violate charter-protected equality rights, while the CRA insists privacy rules prevent demographic data collection. The Canadian press obtained the review agency's report through the Access to Information Act. It was later posted on the Intelligence Watchdog's website. The report's release follows concerns in recent years that Muslim charities have been unfairly singled out for scrutiny by the Federal Revenue Agency. It's another reminder that transparency, fairness, and privacy oversight are deeply connected. And now a brief update from south of the border. In Washington, President Donald Trump has appointed a new internal watchdog for the U.S. Justice Department, career investigator Don Berthiaume, to serve as the department's acting inspector general. The move comes amid ongoing firings of inspectors general and growing concerns the department has been politicized to target Trump's opponents. Among his highest profile assignments was detailing errors in the use of wiretaps in the federal investigation into alleged ties between Russia and Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. The last Senate-confirmed inspector general was Michael Horowitz, a former boss of Berthiaume and one of the few inspector generals who was not fired by Trump. In June, Horowitz was appointed to lead the Federal Reserve Board's Office of Inspector General. Observers warn the independence of federal oversight may be at risk. Meanwhile, in Kentucky, the state attorney general is suing Roblox, claiming the online gaming giant has become a playground for predators. The lawsuit alleges the platform fails to protect children from explicit content and predatory behavior. According to the Kentucky Attorney General, to bolster safeguards for children and teenagers flocking to the site, the company needs to install effective age verifications and content filters. Roblox denies the charges, saying it enforces strict privacy controls and bans user-to-user image sharing with AI-driven moderation systems. The company says it has rigorous text chat filters to block inappropriate words and phrases, attempts to direct under 13 users off the platform, and the sharing of personal information such as phone numbers or addresses. The Kentucky lawsuit comes after Louisiana sued the company in August. A suit was also filed in Iowa after a 13-year-old girl was allegedly introduced to an adult predator on the platform, then kidnapped and trafficked across multiple states and raped. The case adds to a growing wave of litigation over children's privacy and online safety across the United States. That's our roundup for this week. At Access and Privacy Online, we aim to help you stay informed about the evolving landscape of information rights, digital policy, and public accountability. If you find value in our work, you can support the Freedom of Information and Privacy Association by subscribing through FIPA News Monitoring or making a small donation to help keep independent privacy journalism alive. Our writer is Sean Fisk, original music by the ever-enigmatic Breakmaster Cylinder. I'm Patrick Farnsworth. Thank you for listening and for caring about privacy, access, and transparency. Until next time, stay safe and stay informed.